So welcome families to tonight's session on really navigating and learning some of the ins and outs of Google Classroom. My name is Jane Martellino. I'm the media specialist at the Dundee School. My co-host.
My name is Ezra Murray. I am the library media specialist at Julian Curtis Elementary School here in Greenwich.
And I wanted to thank Mr. Mark D'Amico and Dr. Jones for giving us this opportunity to spend with you tonight, and also for Ms. Houlihan for doing a lot of the behind the scenes Zoom pieces for us. So one of the things I was thinking about earlier today, that Google Classroom first came out about 6 years ago. And at that time, I jumped right on board with it because I could see that it was going to have an impact on how students and teachers could have workflow processed through very easily back and forth. But the changes that have been made over the last 6 years are really quite phenomenal. Everything you're going to see tonight is a slideshow that we'll also share with you on top of the video. And every screenshot that you're seeing is actually on an iPad student view. So the first thing that students do is they locate the Classroom app. And I just wanted to point out at the bottom of your screen on an iPad, there's a vertical line that separates some of those apps on the bottom. The ones on the right, there are 3, and you can see there's a Classroom app down there. Those are the apps that were recently opened. The apps to the left of that vertical black line are apps that students can move down to that spot so that they're easily accessible. So the first section we're going to talk about is navigating Google Classroom. So when you open a Classroom, you'll come to the home page. One thing to keep in mind is sometimes when students close the app, it doesn't go right back to the home page. And all you need to do then is look for that little menu at the top that are the 3 lines. People tend to call that the hamburger. And that will always bring you back to the home base. I equate it with students to thinking about walking in the building of a school, and this is where all your classrooms would be located, and then walking in the door to a particular classroom. So tonight, the classroom we're using obviously is the first one, and it's a demo class. So students would just tap on that demo class to enter that virtual space. I'm just gonna move this over a little bit. Okay, so once we get into it, the landing page you land on is called the stream. And that's an opportunity for teachers to do one of 2 things. They can use the stream for announcements, maybe a daily agenda, but they could also have the stream open so that it shows every single posting that's assignments and announcements. Typically in my building, we recommend that teachers use it strictly for announcements, for celebrations, and keep the assignments out of that area because it can kind of get a little convoluted. But just keep in mind that the classroom teacher does have the option on which way to approach the use of the stream. Notice again in the top left corner, you have that hamburger icon, which represents a menu that will take you back to the menu where you could go back to the home page. At the bottom middle, we have the Classwork page, which is where all assignments will be housed. So students are trained for the most part to always go right to Classwork after reading an announcement. So here we are on the Classwork page. Whoop, I think we went one screen too many. On the Classwork page, you'll get used to noticing that the little icons represent different types of postings that a teacher could post. So the types of postings could be a question. It could be just material that the students need to use. It could be a quiz. It could be an assignment. You'll easily begin to recognize those little icons. Students will as well. But you'll also notice that the postings, I'm just going to move this, it's blocking a little bit of our thing. The postings can then be organized by topics. So if you see the words in blue, September 29th, then there's a topic called library, language arts, social studies. Teachers can choose what kind of topics they want to use. They could be content related, or they could just be the day of the week. Some teachers choose to use a topic that's the full week. So just notice the habit that teachers are using to separate how assignments are categorized within those topics. The other thing students need to be aware of is they need to refresh their page, because if a teacher posts something since they've last been on it, it might not appear. And the way they refresh is they just put their pointer finger in the middle of the screen, and they swipe down, and you can see a little tiny red dot right over here. That will be showing the swirling motion, which means the page is refreshed. So if at any point in time the teacher has said something has been posted, students can't see it, they just usually need to refresh. Okay, so we're looking at, sorry about that. We're going to look at a particular assignment in a second, but if we look at a glance, and you can look at the icons, if they're grayed out, that means the student has completed the work, and a blue icon means the work has not yet been completed. Again, we're still in the classwork page of Classroom. One way that students could get a little more comfortable with seeing what assignments are missing and which assignments are still due is to look in the top right corner, and there's filtering options. So you can scan those topic categories, but you can also go a little more advanced and use that filtering. When you choose the little image on the left, which is like an upside down triangle shaped with lines, it's going to allow you to filter everything in this classwork page by those topics. So it would look like this. Now, the reason that's kind of helpful is it's just less clutter. So now the student could just pick a particular topic and then see the postings for that topic. If we were to choose the icon on the right, that's like a little person, almost looks like it's a suitcase, that's going to show postings to Classwork with the status of that posting. In other words, has the student completed the assignment? Is it missing? Has it already been graded? When we click that on, this is what we will see first. Students can tap on any of those postings, any of those lines, like the first one that says, which branch of government does the Supreme Court fall under? If they click on that, it's going to take them to the full assignment. Students can also filter by picking either the category of assigned, missing, or completed within that. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. Notice too at the top, if you ever want to get out of a page, usually you'll have an X or you might have the word done. When I chose that option to then filter a little bit further by the types of process the work is in, assigned, returned, or missing, that will show up at the bottom of the screen, and I can choose, in this case, I'm going to look at returned, what has been returned to me, which means the teacher has seen it and graded it. And that's really helpful to see quickly all your assignments that have been graded. So again, I just have one sample one here. The student would click on that assignment. They would be able to read any comments the teacher wrote, which you can see this little comment box that has 2 comments there. Those would be the private comments going back and forth between the teacher and the student. And if they fully open up the assignment, they would see all details involved. Again, you'll see there's a back arrow here to go back to the Classroom page. Okay, Ezra's going to take over this next section. What else is in the main menu?
And Jane, I just wanted to actually compliment some of the things that you've said about, I was taking notes here. A lot of the things that you've just seen Jane explain to you, the stream, the topics, they are very much so teacher driven. When Google Classroom was first introduced, I also jumped in on the bandwagon because it was such a great way, a seamless way to organize student thinking, teacher thinking, and create a community that's online, that's organized. So as Jane also mentioned, Google Classroom changes almost on a daily, weekly basis. What we're sharing with you right now is most current as of today, and maybe next week there could be some additions into it. Everything that is Google has been doing, Google Education has been an enhancement, and it's based on teacher feedback, parent feedback, and also student feedback. So I'm going to now share with you what else you can find on the menu. Right now, what you're seeing in the screen is what Jane described as the entering into the school building. You have your doors, you have your classes, and you're going to decide which one to go in. So this is that initial screen. The hamburger, the 3 horizontal lines that you have on the upper left-hand corner, gives you a number of other options, which I absolutely love. Having had been an elementary classroom teacher, the way that Google Classroom now lets us organize our thinking, workflow, and really help students with their executive functioning has been tremendous. So now I get the pleasure of actually introducing some of these for you. When you click on the hamburger option on the upper left-hand corner, you're going to come into the main menu. As you can see in the main menu, you have a number of options. Tonight, we are going to start with the option to do. When you click on to do, where the yellow arrow is pointing out, it is going to give you a list, almost like a grocery list of items that you need to do. What is so exciting about this is that it's going to, in a second, you're going to see that the to do is also organized into 3 different sections. So Google Classroom, the to-do list is drawn from the classroom assignments that each classroom teacher in Google Classroom assigns. So once a teacher assigns it, she or he will put a due date. Some assignments may not have a due date because they're just classroom materials that the teacher just wants the students to have handy should they need to reference to it at some point. With assignments that are due and that have a deadline, when you click on the to-do list, you're going to see 3 sections. You're going to see assigned, missing, and done. I absolutely love this because it gives us an idea, the student, and as a mom, I can see it gives us an idea of what is up and coming, what is that we have missed and really need to catch up on, and what that has been done already. When you see the assigned section, all the assignments, and you would notice, as Ms. Martellino said, Jane mentioned, the assignments are going to typically appear with the blue icon. As just to piggyback on that again, the blue icon means the assignment has not been completed. When you click on the missing, of course, they're going to come up with blue icons as well. Done is going to be the list of tasks that the student has completed. As a classroom teacher, when I had my students sign in and take a look at the done section, it gives them a sense of accomplishment of all the incredible hard work that they've completed. So I also want to reiterate that might be a good thing to do at the end of a week to say, hey, look at all these things that you've completed, and let's check up on what's missing so we can catch up on it, and let's get a preview of the assignments. And you can click on whichever link that you need to see. The next thing.
Ezra, can I also add on this page?
Sure.
What makes this different from the filtering that I showed the parents earlier is that this one is showing all classes. So if your students have a homeroom teacher and also have separate classrooms for their different specials, this is going to show everything combined. Where the earlier screen that I showed you once we were in the classwork page for a particular class was going to show you just that classroom's assignments, missing, done, and still assigned. So from the hamburger here, when you're on the initial home page, that's the difference between that list.
Exactly. So this really helps students organize their workflow, not only for one class, but the classes that they have, Google Classrooms that they have in their main app. So the next feature, which I'm super excited about, has just been released this summer, is the calendar option. And when you click on the calendar, again, from the main screen, you are going to notice that the calendar is going to pop open. There are a couple of ways that you're going to be able to open calendar, and I know we're going to go into that a little bit later, but it just literally gives you all of the assignments in a calendar format. It is perfect for those families who do have calendars posted. I know most of us have them in our kitchens. We have them in somewhere at the entry points with, stickies, with practices, games that we have for our children. This is exactly that. It's a calendar of viewing exactly what the student has up and coming. So it's another tool to organize the thinking, organize the workflow that we have. I'm going to go into a little bit of a detail in the next slide, if I'm not incorrect, for the calendar. This is phenomenal for upper elementary students. I use it with 4th graders a lot, with 5th graders for sure, especially 5th graders going into 6th grade, where they become a lot more independent. This is key for them to really hone in on the executive functioning skills and really get an idea. This is optional. I just want to share this with you because I think it's a fantastic feature that we have available to us. You can actually access the calendar directly from a home screen button. And it's super easy to do that. And I know a lot of our students know how to create home screens. I just want to quickly overview it with you. The first step we have to do is on the Google Calendar on the left screen, on the iPad icon on the left side, you would notice that you click on an Open in Safari button. It's like a compass that is all the way on the upper right-hand corner. When you click on that, you're going to see a menu of options. And you're just going to, it's going to open in Safari. And then once it opens up in the Safari app, you're going to click out on the push up button. That push up button is very universal on the iPad. It's also push out button. It's the arrow that's coming out of a box. students have different nicknames for that. When you click on the arrow that is right up, you can actually pick Add to Home Screen from the menu of options. And when you have that, and when you add it to the home screen, the iPad will force out a home screen on the front of the iPad itself. So all of a sudden that will become a quick, easy one button for the student to click on and go and access the calendar directly. So at this point, the student doesn't necessarily need to go into the Google Classroom, but rather can access this calendar very quickly. I know the slides are going to be published for you and they're going to be accessible for you, so you can easily follow this 1, 2, 3 steps in order to establish that. I highly recommend this especially for the upper elementary students. So now on your screen, we're back into the options, back into the hamburger options, and I want to share with you where all the work is stored for the student. This is very interesting because this is a feature that most students tend not to notice. And they always ask us, Mrs. Murray, where did all of that work that I've completed last year go to? Did it just disappear? And it doesn't. It actually stays in a folder in the Google Drive. So when you click on the icon that says Classroom Folders, it has the icon is like a manila folder, I guess. You would notice that it will push you out to Google Drive, and where all of the students' work is populated in that folder. So in this case, for example, when you click on the Classroom folder, it pushed us out to Google Drive, and it pushed us out to a Classroom folder in Google Drive. And notice that there are 5 different folders underneath that. And in each folder, all of the student work that's been completed within that Google Classroom, are populated. They're all in there, and they stay there forever and ever and ever. And this is a fantastic tool. I want to share with you today. I had a student come up to me and asked me, he had created something in 3rd grade. He couldn't find it. He said, Mrs. Murray, it was like the best thing that he's ever created. And he said, I used it in my Google Classroom. Now I don't have that Google Classroom. I was like, sweetheart, hold on one second. We went into his Google Drive. We clicked on the Classroom folder, and voila, everything was in there in his 3rd grade folder. So it is a fantastic tool to kind of retrieve things that the student had done in the previous years.
And one thing Google always has recommended is that students don't move things out of those folders, and teachers have the exact same structure on their end. The other thing too, once you open up a folder for a classroom, there'll be subfolders within that classroom for those specific assignments. So the organizational structure that is taking place by Google really shows the students a model of how you can create folders and subfolders and really keep systems organized. So the back end is just outstanding.
Absolutely, absolutely agreed. And now we're back in the home page. We're back into entering the school building, and there is this settings icon. I'm sure a lot of us are quite familiar with this icon as it appears everywhere, the gear symbol. When you click on the setting icon, and we're sharing this with you because there's a fantastic tool within that you can use, your student can use. As you can see under the settings, you have the about, the account settings, default apps, and so on and so forth. What is so amazing is the part that says notifications. When you click on the notifications button, there is an option for the student to receive email notifications, and that's like one more way for students to realize they have upcoming work or they've completed a work and other things are happening. Now, this is a relatively new feature, and student access to emails, which is from K through 5 right now that we have, is brand new to our K through 5 students as well. So I'm going to defer to the classroom teacher in order to really use this feature with the students, as our students are just getting used to using an email. And I know, Jane, you can concur with me. We are working really hard with our, especially upper grades, starting with 5th, going down to 3rd, with those students in how to use emails, how to write emails, etc. Since as we're working with that, this is an additional feature. I think I would like you to know that it exists out there, that it's there. And within the same breath, I'm going to defer to the classroom teacher, your child's classroom teacher, to manage this feature and manage the Gmail option
And one
for the
comment,
students.
one comment I'd like to add on that too is when it is turned on, and again, the students have had those initial lessons on how to use their email appropriately. What's really nice is if a teacher writes a private comment back to a student, they'll get an email notification saying that the teacher has written this private comment, and they click it right on within the email, and it takes them right into that assignment with that private comment. The same thing happens, they'll get an email alert to say that an assignment has been graded. Again, they would just click on the body of the email with the link that takes them directly to the assignment to see the grade. So it's also a great way. Again, we're seeing with Google, Google always has more than one way to do things. So you've already seen 3 ways for students to access graded work. The first way was the one I showed you in Classroom itself for that particular class. Ezra just showed you to look at graded work for all your classrooms. And then this one now is given that an alternate way is seeing it through going through email. So Google, there's always more than one way to do anything with Google. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit deeper into assignments, material, questions, and quizzes. And you're probably saying, oh my, because this is probably where I think confusion often sets in because there's so many different types of assignments that teachers can create, and we want them to, right? So the first one here I'm going to point out is this assignment has this purple icon attached to the assignment, which in the instructions, it would say, click the attached Google form and work through the questions. So teachers are very comfortable with writing pretty clear and explicit directions that would prompt the students to know what their next step is before they just jump into thinking, where's my work I need to do? So a Google form means they would click on the Google form. Immediately, they're going to see this step 2 where it's asking, should we open that up in Safari? And students always tap open. Kindergarten straight through 5th grade, we use Google Forms with. The Google form would open, and it's just a really great way for students to give responses to teachers. Teachers can embed images, they can embed video, they can embed pieces of text. Students can do multiple choice questions, short response, longer responses. It's an absolutely fantastic way to interact with students. The biggest thing students have to remember when they complete that Google form, they must push the submit button. And then when they're done, there's usually a little done at the top of the corner. What they need to remember to do, because this is an assignment, when they hit done, it brings them back to the assignment in Classroom. And the last step would be to tap on below where you would see mark that work as done. That keeps it from showing up in the missing work. Many times what happens is students complete the quiz or the Google form. Teachers can see the results instantly, but the students might be having this work is not done, and they say, but I've done it. They just forgot to mark it as done. The second type of assignment might be something where the teacher has another app attached to it. For instance, this assignment is asking the students to go into Flipgrid, and it could be any other tool outside of the Google environment. So the students would read the instructions, they would tap on that particular app, it would take them into the assignment that is created through that app. When they're finished, they would have to do that same step to go back to the assignment and mark it as done. This is a really common type of assignment that teachers create now, is when they either include an image or maybe a PDF of some kind of an activity sheet. And the students are actually going to what we call annotate or mock up right on that image or PDF. And there's just a couple of steps that students need to get comfortable with doing so that that process works effortlessly. Should I go back one? So the first step would be, they would look at the directions again, and it's telling them to click on it will walk them through each part of the steps that I'm going to demonstrate right now. But you'll see below there's an attachment. In this case, it's an image. When we click on the image opens up in its own window. Students at this point cannot write on that image until they click. Let me show you on the next screen. There's a little pencil in the top corner that they would have to click so that the tools open up to annotate. The tools would appear on the bottom of the screen, and then they could mock up that image or a full page PDF. When they're done though, they must save done. They must hit the save button, otherwise the work does not get saved. Once they hit save, it's going to take them to a screen where you can see that it's processing and actually creating a whole new image with their work embedded on that image or on that PDF. When that is finished, they wait for that little process to go through. They can X out of that screen and they would come right back to their assignment. What sometimes confuses people is they'll see this initial image still shown as the attachment. And if you were to click that on right now, it would be the original one with no student work, because the student's work, that revised one, is now shown below. So if a student is concerned, they would click on this bottom arrow for your work, and they would see that that new image has been relabeled to be an edited image, and then they would turn it into their teacher. So they could literally click on this image and actually see their work again, but they just mostly need to hit the turn in button. And always Google will prompt them a second time. Are you sure you want to turn it in? And they would hit turn it in a second time. Another way a teacher might give an assignment would be to actually create a Google Doc template that all students are going to complete. So it's making the work a little bit easier in that the fact that the students don't have to go and create their own, like either a graphic organizer or any kind of template that's using Google Docs. The teacher would have created one for each student. Again, teachers are going to give very explicit instructions, and it's saying that you need to use this reader's response Google Doc that I have created for you, which should indicate to the students, where is it? Oh, it must be down in my work section. So when we click on my work, immediately on the right side of the screen, you'll see there's a Google Doc pre-named with your child's name and the name of the assignment. They would double click to open up the Google Doc, they would complete their work, and again, when they're finished, they would have to turn it in. So let's take you to what happens when they click on that document. The first screen is what we call a preview screen. You know it's in preview mode because you see that little export button, the square with the arrow pointing out. Recently, I was told that it's actually called the Sharrow button, which I like export personally better, but you need to tap that on to open it so students can actually work in Google Docs app to type their responses. So that's one of the most critical pieces to do, is to export it out so it opens in Google Docs. You know you're open in Google Docs because you'll see the iPad go through that little stage, and then you see the pencil at the bottom. The blue pencil at the bottom, the students tap it on and their keyboard opens so they can type in their responses just like they would do in any Google Doc. When they're finished with that document, in the top left corner of the screen, there's a very small print that says go back to classroom. When they tap on that small print, it's going to take them again to the original document that looks like work has not been done. They don't need to panic. They're just going to hit the X. And they'll see again in their work section is where their revised document is, and they're going to turn it in. You'll notice in pretty much every assignment, there's also going to be this place for students to add a private comment to the teacher. It's private, only the teacher would see those comments. Now, this is a section where if a student does submit work and all of a sudden realizes that maybe they didn't complete a section of it, or they want to review it again real quickly, they would look on that your work section and they would see a button that says unsubmit. When the work was submitted to the teacher, the student loses editing privileges. They have a view only of that work. The reason that that happens is it's just as if a student had a piece of paper and handed it physically into the teacher. The teacher now has that paper to grade. The students no longer have access. It's the same thing in this digital environment. But before a paper is due, a student could unsubmit and they would be able to reopen, revise the document. They're not creating a new one. It's the same one that they worked on, and they would then turn it back in again. The other option students always have in assignments is they could also attach an attachment to any assignment the teacher gives. So for instance, if the students were working on a Google Doc for a reader's response, and maybe they had found a video of the author giving an interview, or perhaps they had taken pictures that they thought really connected to how they were responding. They always have that option down below where they go to your work section and they could select add attachment, and it's going to give them all the different types of Google tools they can use, including the camera, to add photos, video, again, links, and any other documents, slides. So it's a great way to add on when a student wants to go a little bit further in sharing responses to teachers. The next section will be Ezra talking about communicating with the teacher through Google Classroom.
So this is actually the part that I love the most. A lot of the times we notice whether when you're in remote school, the feedback becomes increasingly important because that really informs the student of the kind of work that they're doing. And also it gives opportunity for the teacher to give that feedback. It's kind of sitting side by side or table conferences or one-on-one conferences, and Google Classroom provides that opportunity seamlessly. Before I explain this, I just want to quickly also let you know a lot of the things that Jane had explained to you, when students do it once or twice, it becomes almost automatic. It's a very intuitive platform for students to go around. And I learned so much from my own students as to how they navigate around Google Classroom. So let's talk about leaving feedback. There are different ways. In the beginning of the webcast, if you would remember, Jane did mention the stream part of the Google Classroom. That's one place, if a teacher allows it, that's one place where students can leave messages for the whole classroom that's available. This is specifically from teacher to student feedback, and there are ways of either making it private or making it available to every single person in the classroom. Now, it's kind of difficult for students to gauge whether or not the kind of feedback they're seeking is going to be beneficial to all of their peers. However, as kids navigate through these sections, they increasingly become aware of what's useful, what's not, and that's something as classroom teachers, or with library media specialists, we always talk and go back and refer students to different ways of leaving it. So when you open up an assignment, and Jane had showed that to you, in the assignment details, there is a section that says class comments. This is for a student to leave a comment for the teacher and for that comment to be visible to all of his or her peers in the classroom. When the student clicks on class comments and leaves that comment, everyone can access it. So as teachers, we find this very useful because if you notice that if there's a general issue that we're running into, or there's a general feedback that we want to give to the students, for example, just reminding them of a step that's enclosed in the assignment, kind of saying, hey, remember to please submit the turn in button, that would be a feedback that the teacher will give to the entire student body. And then if students realize there's something missing and something that they really need to alert the teacher, this is a fantastic step for them to leave a quick note where everyone in the classroom, including the teacher, can see the comment. So this is one way. And the next way is leaving a private comment to the teacher. Now, this comment is not visible to anyone else in the classroom. It is only visible to the student and the teacher. So in order to do that, you would open up the assignment, whatever the assignment that the student wants to leave a private comment for the teacher. You click on the Your Work button, that's all the way on the bottom of the iPad when you open up the assignment. And there is a section right after the class, it says private comments. It would prompt the student to add the private comment. And this is the place where the student can mention something that is only applicable to them and them only. For example, it could be something about a student's struggle to being able to complete the assignment on time, the task on time. It could be something about specific to the student about not being able to access a resource or material that they should have been able to access. So it's something that is not going to impact the work of his or her classmates, but rather something that impacts the work of that child. So once the child submits the private comment, all they would have to do is press the button submit, and that private comment goes to the teacher. So now if you would remember when we're reviewing the email function, the notification function, as soon as a private comment or a class comment is entered into Google Classroom by a student, the classroom teacher on the backside will receive an email alerting to them that a comment has been left. So this way, the teachers are aware that comments are being left by the students. And if the student's classroom teacher has given the green light for the students to access the email function, an email will pop up in students. An email would be generated and will pop up in their inbox. And when a teacher leaves a response to that private comment or the class comment for that example, there would be a notification that will pop up in the email.
Right. The notifications are really what allows it to be timely, and feedback obviously needs to be timely to be effective. So that we always encourage teachers to definitely have those notifications turned on. And like Ezra said, as soon as teachers feel comfortable with their students having the email, that's going to be a really added benefit for students.
So this is the section where we wanted to include this option because teachers providing direct feedback in any of the Google Suite options, for example, Google Docs, Google Slide, is invaluable. This is sort of in an in-person classroom when the teacher is circulating, kind of jots down right, crouches down right by a table and has a quick conference, a small conference with the student. This is exactly what Google Classroom is doing. In the comment in the Google Doc homework assignment that Jane shared with you, it was about the reading log. You can actually, this teacher can leave a comment inside the Google Doc. So all the students, can leave a comment and the teacher can also respond and vice versa. So the feedback mechanism goes both ways, from teacher to student, student to teacher. And all you would need to do is open up the homework assignment, highlight the area where the student has the question about. It could be something to check in with understanding. It could be whatever the feedback, whatever the comment is. All you would need to do is to highlight the section of the text that needs more clarification or that requires more feedback from the teacher. And then click on the comment button on the upper right-hand corner. It's a box with lines on it, and that will prompt open a comment box. And all the student has to do is either type in a quick comment for the teacher, and the teacher will go in here and respond to the comment that the student has, to the feedback that the student has left behind. Now, there's a new feature in here that has been made very useful, and I think this is kind of applicable to the upper elementary school students. You can use the @ sign and type in the person's name, and that will generate an email to the inbox of the student so that the student knows that it's actually that somebody has left a comment specifically for them. And another great feature is that when you open up the task button in Google Calendar, that it will appear as something that the student needs to action, something needs to do. But in terms of just using it within Google Classroom, it's a matter of just pressing the comment button and it will give you a list of comments. One of the things as a classroom teacher, we find this very, very helpful, is the kind of amount of feedback that the teacher and the student are having. And it informs of our practice, it informs us of the kinds of questions our student is asking, and it kind of informs us of our instruction as well. It's a fantastic mechanism for the students and the teachers go back and forth and have clarifications and little mini chats on the side.
And one thing I'd like to add too to that, Ezra, is when a teacher creates an assignment where they're attaching that template for a Google Doc, or it could be a Google Slide, in real time, the teachers are seeing every single student's document. So those comments could be done live in the moment. So if we think of remote teaching and the teacher has just provided a mini lesson and is given an assignment where they've added that template for a doc or slide, the students are now working independently on that. The teacher can pop in on anyone's document and make those comments live right then and there on the spot, as well as obviously call them into a meet session. But I love the fact that it's timely, real-time, actually, responses through commenting can happen on documents.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. One of the ways that we've used it in an in-person learning situation would be few students will be gathered around the table. They'd be working on a shared document, for example, And as they're typing in, instead of verbalizing their questions, they would just leave a little comment on the side, and the teacher would be monitoring that. So that is a fantastic way to collaborate and cooperate together, and later on really go back. So one of the other ways that we can increase collaboration, communication using Google Classroom is by emailing the teacher directly. This is a brand new feature, and I believe Greenwich, as the Greenwich Public Schools, we just started giving access to our K-5 students, access to email to K-5 students. And as you would know, just as a reminder, in a K-5 setting here in Greenwich Public Schools, students can only email their teachers, and teachers can then only email the students. So there's no outside emails or any other ways. There's a certain blocks that we have put in place for that. So if the student wants to email the teacher directly, they would go, instead of going to the Gmail app, which is another way of doing it, however, but through the Google Classroom, what they can do is click on the People tab on the bottom right-hand corner of their iPad, and that tab will open up all names of all the students in that classroom and all of the teachers in that classroom. And there is an envelope icon right next to that teacher's name. And when the student clicks on that envelope icon, it will prompt open a Gmail app, and it would say, please open the Gmail icon. You click on the Gmail, and teacher's email address is automatically populated in the to field of their email. This really minimizes any errors that the student, any errors in typing teacher's email in this setting. It automatically generates what the student needs to do. I know in the classrooms, and Ms. Martellino, Jane, you can concur, we are working on email writing tips, etc. And this is a fantastic option for students to provide or get in touch with their teachers in a direct manner. And it's great work in progress. Our students are really trying very hard to use their best etiquette in sending emails to the teachers. So this is one more way for students to access teachers using Google Classroom.
Right. And
so
one thing to be aware of too, when the students tap on people, they will see every student listed in their class. That little email icon will be there, but if they tap it on, it will say you're not allowed to send email to a student. So even though it looks like they could, they can't. They can only email the teachers, and that would be the classroom teacher as well as the specialist that has a classroom as well. So whatever class, whoever the teacher in charge of that specific classroom, they could communicate with.
Absolutely. And regardless of the method that the student chooses to communicate with his or her teacher, the Gmail app itself will start populating all of this communication. I really love this feature because it's almost like a communication log that we have available that we can always refer back to and see what kind of communication has taken, what kind of feedback has taken place. And it is a fantastic opportunity for students to continue to be in touch with their teachers and really get that in-person feedback that's happening in person, face-to-face sessions, virtually. It is a fantastic feature.
And I can really see it being quite an empowerment tool for students. I think grades 3 and up is where we'll probably be focusing this year on using the email, but it puts the student in the driver's seat, so they're being proactive and speaking for themselves on help they need from their teachers. So it definitely is going to be a fantastic tool.
Absolutely, gives them great agency and ownership of the work that they're completing. So I think, Jane, this is where we are pausing, if I'm not incorrect, and taking in any Q&A. I have the Q&A screen open, and we have one question that's been answered. I just want to reiterate it. One of the parents has asked if this presentation will be available to watch later. Yes, there will be a recording of it, and we will post it on the website, so you will be able to access it. And I highly recommend that we went through these slides, and sometimes you just sit back and watch. Sometimes when you get your hands on it, you'll come up with additional questions and wonder which step to follow. And I think Jane and I try to outline every single step to the smallest detail, so that when you access the slide, you can have it as a tool for you to refer back to when completing some of the tasks.
Exactly. And many times I'll recommend to parents that they open up the slideshow on another device so that the student's then sitting with their iPad and you're just going screen by screen through it. But like Ezra said earlier, all it takes is the consistency of teachers using, which we all do, certain assignments a few times for students to get comfortable with that type of format. And then we scaffold it by introducing a new type of format with assignments and new types of attachments. And they slowly build up their comfort and their just ease of navigating a variety of types of assignments and postings within Google Classroom.
Yes. And also the other thing is when you fumble a little bit, you make the wrong, you press the wrong button, it gives an opportunity to learn from failure. So you uncover so many different features of it as you fumble along and kind of find a way that really works for you. So we have another question, and the question is asking if students can see each other's work.
Students cannot see each other's work unless the teacher creates the type of assignment that's meant to be shared, which would be a collaborative document. So for instance, in the beginning of the year, it's quite common for a teacher to make an assignment that's a slideshow. It's one slideshow, Google slideshow, with each child has one slide to work on, where they're creating text boxes about themselves, their favorite things, their goals for the year. The point of an assignment like that to be collaborative would be for a way for students to get to know each other really quickly through a slideshow, and also to share something like that with families. There's other times where a teacher might use a Google Doc for small groups of students. Again, I'm just going to use more library types of lessons that I might think of, but it might be like a book club. And students might be sharing and brainstorming based on different questions that we're posing to the students, and they're all working collaboratively on that document. So they would be a small group assigned to it. Anytime a teacher creates an assignment in classroom, they have the power to differentiate those assignments to the students, because they can pick and choose students for different aspects of assignments. Not every assignment has to go to every student in the classroom. And that's, again, a really added bonus for Google Classroom. Many times I'll have students working on independent research projects, and they have a variety of passions they're pursuing. And I might find just the perfect resources for just that one or two students, and I will push it to them through Classroom, just to them. And
Exactly.
you want to add on?
No, you said it perfectly, Jane. I mean, there is so many ways that we can use, and the teachers use these tools, and kids gain such familiarity. Eventually, they sometimes say, Mrs. Murray, instead of doing it this way, can we do it another way? And it's fantastic once they gain it, the comfort level with it, and they end up gaining agency over their own learning. We have one more question. We have a number of questions. I don't know if my 4th or 2nd graders check their email accounts, or I don't know if they know how to do that. Are there other ways for them to get notifications of comments?
At this point, it would be going back. Let's go back to a screen. If they're not at the point yet where the classroom teacher and the media specialist together have kind of given enough lessons where they're all feeling comfortable with using the email piece, when they were filtering, so if we go back to that filtering piece, that's probably the easiest way to see any kinds of comments from teachers. So I would probably go back to within that classroom and using the filtering options to see those particular assignments. And within that, usually you can see little icons under each one that would show an indication of a private comment being given to them. That's typically the best. But again, the teachers have the option at any point in time, even within the stream, which is that first page we looked at where announcements can be made, teachers can also make a comment or a posting that goes just to a student. So they could also ask a student to please go to this particular assignment. They can link the assignment within that posting. The child would just click on the link and it would take them right to it. So navigationally behind the scenes, there's many ways for teachers to attract the students' attention and get them directly to that piece of feedback.
Right. And most of the times, and when we were doing this in spring as well, we would let the students know that we have left comments, and for them to please go into whatever, whether it was a assignment in Docs or assignment in Google Slides, just have them go back into the Google Classroom and access that assignment and check for comments. Oftentimes we've done that, and students get used to it. It's kind of like, whenever you approach a student at their table and start a conference, they're used to the mechanisms of how that kind of goes. And actually we teach explicitly how a conference goes. And this is exactly teaching explicitly how we would be leaving comments for them and how they should be checking their comments. Exactly. So it's a fantastic tool. We have one more question asking if this a parent asking if they are able to access their child's Google Classroom.
Okay, so The easiest way right now would be at home for a student to log on to a home device by going to classroom.google.com, logging in, and the parent can see it on a second device. There will be an opportunity in time, Mr. D'Amico, I don't know if you want to address it at all, where Greenwich will have the opportunity to have students be given what they call guardian permission to get weekly or daily summaries.
Sure, thanks, Jane. We are looking into providing guardian summaries for parents. I think it's a little premature to talk about exactly what Guardian is, given the 10 minutes that we have left. I really want to focus on the questions that the parents are asking, but as soon as we have a high level of confidence that Guardian is ready to roll out, we'll give you a very detailed explanation of what it is and what you can expect to see.
Thank you. I hope that gave an overview. Another question, we've had issues with the amount of passwords needed. Oh, do tell us. Is there a way to have all passwords built into the platform? Jane, I'm going to say this is more of an iPad issue, right? In terms of going to the settings and the iPad, if I'm not incorrect, versus the Google Classroom.
Right. What I can do at the end of this slideshow is I'll add another, some screenshots on how a student would go into their settings and go into privacy and turn on like the save password option. And what that allows the student to do is the first time they enter some of the tools that we use even for research, it would prompt them, do you want to save this username and password? They would say yes. And then the next time they go to that website, it comes up kind of almost above the keyboard saying, do you want to use this login information? But I can add those screenshots because I always think it's easiest if you actually see what it looks like on a student iPad. I'll add that to the end of this presentation.
That's great. And if you're iPad savvy, it's right under settings, password accounts, and that's the one with the key icon. And there's a toggle that says autofill passwords. I usually, especially with my younger students and also my older students as well, that is the very first thing that we do with our iPads to make sure that toggle is on so that everything is saved. And quite frankly, I do the same thing for myself as well. We have one more question about what is the best way to check to see whether your child is up to date on all assignments, including specials? Thank you.
Okay, so if you're,
multiple ways, right, Jane?
Yeah, so if you want to look for, let's go back to, I just want to get to the beginning screen here. When you first entered, again, the school building, and you see all your classes listed, which would be this screen right here. So we can see this child belongs to this demo class. This child also belongs to another test class called demo. Your child would have a homeroom one. It might have a music classroom. It might have a Spanish. It might have PE. It might have several classes. When they go up to the hamburger menu at that point and click that on, when they see the to-do section there, that's when they're going to see any assignments for all their classes combined. If you're concerned with just one classroom, then you would open up that particular classroom. And then again, that's when we'd go to Classwork over here, and we take advantage of the filtering options on this side, which we would be saying we want to filter by seeing, let me go down one more slide, by the types of work. So we want to see which work has been assigned, which work has been completed, which work has been done. So right here. So when we clicked on the little person icon the first time, we have to click it a second time, and it gives us the options down below to say, what do you want to see? Show me only, in this case, what work has been returned, or show me only which work has been missing. So there's those two avenues, single classroom or all the classes the students belong to.
Yeah. I tend to go to all the classrooms. I tend to go to the to-do list because I am a more checklist kind of a person, and I think I'm raising my kids kind of like that also. But I've also seen other students go to the calendar option where they see things kind of laterally, and then they say, okay, have I done this? Have I done this? So they're depending on the kind of training that or the kind of thinking that the student has, either or would be great. We have quite a few questions, and I know we have a hard stop at 7, so we're going to try to address most of them. One of the parents is wondering, I am wondering if the teachers have been trained on how to use this app, noticing that some of the teachers are not using all the functions. And I'm just going to quickly let you guys know that depending on the teacher's style and the way that they are using and rolling out some of the features, it's usually really based on their understanding of their students. So perhaps the teachers might be holding off on some of the features a little bit as long and waiting for their students to get really comfortable with what she has already taught them to do, and we'll start slowly rolling them out. And the other thing is a lot of these features are completely brand new. As Jane and I mentioned, some of these things have actually come up last week and within the past few weeks or so. So some of them are really brand new. It's a lot of keeping up with Google's technology.
Yeah, but
Is there something?
Yes.
Oh.
I was going to add to that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jane.
I was going to say too, that we're this early in the school year, there is a lot of scaffolding we do with our assignments because students need the repetition. So you'll slowly keep building and building and adding more substance to it, because you could see on some of those assignments when we had attachments attached to an assignment that there were multiple steps. Sometimes it's like 8 steps before you're done and you turn it in. And it's really important not to overwhelm the students, to really kind of do those baby steps and get that comfort level really securely in place. Sorry, Mark.
No problem. Jane, I just wanted to add on, much like we're providing support to the parents who are logging in tonight, we do provide ongoing professional development for our teachers, for the teachers that are in our brick and mortar locations and the teachers that are in the remote school. And as a matter of fact, we sent out a message this evening to the parents, to all of you, that we will have an early release next Friday, because we are providing intensive professional development to our remote teachers, and we plan on continuing to do that on a frequent basis. Not always resulting in an early release for your students, because we understand and recognize the importance of a full instructional day. But we do have staff development opportunities on Wednesday afternoons after the school day is over. So we are constantly looking at ways to grow our teachers from an instructional standpoint and from a technological standpoint. So I think it's important just to underscore that.
Thank you, Mark. I think that answers one of the other questions that we have on in the queue here, talking about how sometimes the assignments may appear in the stream, and it's really hard for students to kind of keep up with what's going on in there, because you have to toggle up and down, up and down. And hopefully with the professional development opportunities, teachers will start providing the assignments and everything else within the workplace of the Google Classroom. So I think that hopefully helps answer that question.
Yes, and I would just say can I just say for those parents too, when the stream does look confusing, because it is a personal choice by the teacher on which way they want to run their stream, just remember they always go to Classwork to see just assignments and nothing else. And by going to the Classwork page, teachers are always using topics to separate that type of work. My guess would be that most remote teachers are probably using a topic for that day, so that under that day you would see exactly what work you need to do that particular day. Typically, that's what we encouraged everyone to do last spring, and I would assume that's pretty much the standard operating procedure for remote students, to have a day and the assignments under it. Sometimes as the students get older, they're so much more comfortable with Google Classroom, using what I have down below here of content topics, that becomes a little bit more comfortable for the older students. But so focus on the Classwork tab more definitely for assignments.
Absolutely. So we have another quick question that we can answer very quickly, and I'm going to go into the next one. Can I be logged onto my child's Google Classroom on my desktop computer at the same time as he is on his iPad? And yes, you can. You can be on multiple devices at the same time, and you can see what your child has in the Google Classroom. You can be on a laptop. So the answer for that is yes, you can.
I think it's also important, if I could just jump in real quick again, I think it's also important, parents, to know that we have designated principals assigned to all of our remote teachers. So much like a principal would walk into a classroom and sit down and observe a teacher, all of our designated principals have access to the Google Classrooms, and they are popping in and out. And I as well have access to all of those classrooms, and so do my curriculum coordinators. So we're constantly popping in and out of the classroom so that we can provide feedback to our teachers in real time and to give them any support that they need. And we really do appreciate all the patience that you've shown us in the first month of school.
And I want to add too, just to be aware that the view of Classroom that we've shown tonight through the student lens on an iPad, it is slightly different when you're on a laptop or a desktop. The tools are the same. They might just be located in a little bit different place. For instance, the bottom on the iPad is where the tabs are for Stream, Classwork, and People. When you're on a laptop or a desktop, those are up top. Same thing with student work. We used to have to look for that arrow down the bottom. Those would be on the side. So the layout is different. So don't panic when you see a different layout. It's the same substance, just laid out differently.
That's a really good point, Jane. And one final question we have is, what happens if a child accidentally removes an assignment? Is there a way to get it back?
Typically what happens is the teacher will repost just to that student. So that's a perfect example when you need to give a private comment to a teacher. Again, once the email functioning is rolled out completely for the younger students, that could be an email as well. If the teacher does create a document though, like you saw the example when I had the students writing in a reader's response document that was created for them, when Ezra pointed out that classwork folder, that document would still be in that folder. But there are times where things accidentally get deleted by the students, and again, shoot a private message to the teacher and it's an instant access for the teacher to repost.
Exactly. I was just going to concur with that also. That classroom folder in the Google Drive is the best place for you to go and look at the archived work, old work, and sometimes students may think that they have deleted, but it is actually residing in their Google Drive because it's hard to delete things off of Google, we find.
Yeah, and actually, while we're thinking about it, within the stream itself, students could not delete the assignment per se.
Yeah.
What they might accidentally delete would be like that Google Doc template, but it would be in there. But again, don't waste time, just private message the teacher.
So we've reached 7 o'clock. Do we still have more questions?
We have one question that I think we can answer, Mark, if it's okay with your blessing.
Go
I'd like
for
to.
it.
Okay. To see multiple children's work in the Greenwich Public School system, we would then have to log into Google Classroom, one for each child, and then log out and then log into the other child's to see. If you're on a laptop, what you can do, you can have multiple tabs and have each child's Google Classroom on a separate tab. That would be something that you may want to do. You don't have to log in and out of, if you're using a desktop, a Chromebook, or a laptop, you do not have to log in and out. You can keep logged in and kind of set that aside. I tend to do that. I have my children's on different tabs and I just minimize it when I'm doing my work, but it's there if in case I need to check up on that. You don't have to log in and out. Jane, do you have any other suggestions for that?
I was just going to say, I tend to use more like a new window versus a tab.
Right.
So when you're in Chrome and you're up at the top of your screen, I have mine now open where it says File. I would open up a new window. So I would have those just separate windows so I don't have to log in and out. Because even as teachers, librarians, we tend to have a student account, so we can constantly look at what we're creating from a student lens. So I always have two windows open, one a student side and then one for my own side as a teacher. It's a good question though.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And thank you for all your kind messages that you also sent through the Q&A, thanking us and finding this useful. Jane, it is incredible. It's very gratifying because this is the work that us teachers have been doing, day in and day out. It is fantastic. And Mark, thank you for giving us the platform to really talk about this incredibly useful tool.
And I would say, as media specialists, we are so passionate about, teaching and teaching not only students and teachers and parents. Like, this is what we love to do. So Mark, I'm sure I'll speak on behalf of Ezra, but anytime you want any of these sessions on very particular things, I think we're both game because we love it and we want people to have just a fantastic experience, all for the benefit of their students.
Well,
Absolutely.
Jane and Ezra, thank you so much. Tonight was wonderful. I certainly learned a few things. And for those parents who've hung in with us till the end, if there is a particular topic that you're interested in, let us know. You can email any one of us. It's first name _ last name at greenwich.k12.ct.us. We're happy to provide you with whatever you need to make this experience as successful as possible and as rewarding as possible. So with that, I wish you all a wonderful night, and perhaps we'll see you here again soon sometime.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you. Have a great evening.